In today's session, I wanted to cover off diagrams. So specifically creating AWS diagrams, and I happened to stumble across a nifty little library that makes creating service diagrams or AWS service diagrams a little bit more easier. Anyway, so I'll cover off some of the solutions that I have been using previously. So the first one would be Cloudcraft. And if you just make an account on this website, then you have access to a lot of their diagram tools. And you can just simply create 3D diagrams. So if you had an EC2 and say you had a Lambda function, if you wanted to join them up somehow, and then if you were to put them into a singular availability zone, what else? You could have an API gateway, and that could be hooking into your EC2 machine. So you can make a 3D diagram, you can switch it between 3D and 2D. And so all of these icons here are normally 3D icons, but you can just look up generic 2D icons. So for example, SageMaker doesn't actually have a 3D icon, but you can drag it over and change it, and you can use it as part of your diagram. So this is what I like to use if I'm trying to create something really high level, and I just want to make it a little bit more prettier than usual. So that's one diagram or one illustrating platform. Another one is draw.io. So draw.io, if you create a new one, it's got a whole bunch of different templates. You can create class flow diagrams. I normally use like AWS diagrams. You can see here it's got different solution architectures. So if you just clicked one, click to create, just save that locally. And here it's just created a nice little diagram showing you the different components. So you might have a single AWS account, S3 buckets, code pipeline, organizations, all these kind of things. It's just a nice way of representing it. Now I find that draw.io has a little bit more, I guess, drawing objects available. So on the left, you can see all the different drawing objects. The AWS template or different icons is a lot more extensive, and if you're looking for anything in particular, you can just search for it at the top, and it'll show you all the different icons. Now, one thing I didn't really like with draw.io is it's a bit hard to sometimes make it look pretty or align objects. I don't know if it's got any snap functionality or not, but it's just overall a little bit more difficult to align and make nice. It can get pretty messy pretty quickly. Anyway, so what I really wanted to show was, okay, those are the two main platforms that I use to create all my illustrations and diagrams. But when I'm writing out my application, I've been designing solutions in CloudFormation where all the infrastructure is code. So if you've got like a virtual machine or a server, what are the configurations? What's the number of processors and amount of RAM on that thing? How much storage will it have? All those things are defined in code, and then I normally deploy them using CloudFormation. So I basically create these CloudFormation templates. So what I was always looking for is, how can I take my CloudFormation template and generate a diagram? It'd be nice if I could just do that, so I can always have a sync between what I'm actually coding up and what's actually being presented or illustrated. So what I came across was this little library called CFN diagram. So it's this GitHub repository, and it's a CLI tool. So it's a command line interface tool, which you can just run a command like this, cfn-dia, and then you can specify it to generate a draw.io diagram. So what I hope is I'm going to have my CloudFormation templates, which are defined in either JSON or YAML. I'm going to be able to run this command, and then it's going to be able to generate some sort of illustration into this tool. And then I could start that as a starting point for all my diagram purposes. All right, let me just open up a solution. Okay, so here I'm just opening up Visual Studio Code. Then I'm opening up my terminal so I can get at the command line. Then I'm just activating my Python virtual environment. Then if you go up here, it's got an npm command. So this is Node Package Manager. So that's what npm is. It's just telling it to install this package into the environment. So I'm installing into the whole workstation, not specifically Python, but that's just how I'm installing it. It's falling under Node at the moment. Okay, so what I have is, if you're familiar with CDK, so just a quick refresher, CDK is a translation layer between application code and CloudFormation templates. So in my use case, I normally like using Python to define a lot of my applications and also my infrastructure. And then I use CDK to translate all of that into either JSON or YAML CloudFormation templates. So CDK is normally something like this. So CDK-ls is listing all of the solutions in this folder that have been designed using the CDK toolkit. So these are all the different solutions. When any CDK commands are run, then it would actually perform that translation process across all of these 10 or so different solutions that I've defined. And here, if you just expand the cdk.out directory, you'll find all of these .json files. And the ones that we're interested in is usually the .template.json files. Okay? So if I run cfndia, that should allow me to run something in command line. Then if I that's right, T. So I'm just looking for, actually, it's called notebook. Okay, so there I've got one of my templates, which looks like this. It's got a whole bunch of mapping variables. Then when you get down here, you've got your resource. I've got a IAM role. Then what else do I have? I've got a policy here. And I have the notebook instance lifecycle config, and I've got the SageMaker notebook instance itself. So here I'm just going to, let me output it to this directory. Okay, so what I'm running is cfn dia-t, so template, providing a reference to a template file, then setting the output location as test, hopefully that's a directory, then telling it to generate a draw.io file. Maybe this needs to go before. Okay, I haven't actually tested these other options just yet. I've just been quitting and letting it generate my diagram for me. Then I've got this test.draw.io file that I specified as the output. If you open that, that's an XML diagram. Hopefully this has something in it. And then if you go back over to draw.io, you should be able to open from device. I should be able to go to my repository. Then I've got the test file. And then here. So you can see it's generated the diagram and each of the resource objects. So for this specific solution, it was focused around SageMaker notebooks. So here you've got your notebook. And so you've got the notebook lifecycle attached to it. And then you've also got a notebook application role. So this is defining the sort of permissions for this notebook. And permissions, I mean, what can this notebook access? Does it have access to the likes of Redshift and S3? And then this role consists of two policy documents. So the first one is notebook application role, and then you can see that this one is linked to multiple S3 buckets. So it must have read or write access to these 4 S3 buckets. Then you've also got this additional policy here, which looks like it's providing access to Athena to run Athena queries against S3 buckets. So I guess the whole idea was you can take this very long and complex CloudFormation template, and then this little command line interface program will convert that into a nicer looking diagram and keep all the IDs and resource names pretty consistent. So it just makes it easier to represent what we're designing. Now, there is another tool that you could use. You could use the built-in CloudFormation designer, but I won't cover it here because that's pretty much a given if you've used CloudFormation before. All right, that's it.